Okay, let's go over rules for use of semicolons in Associated Press style. Semicolons really have only two purposes. One is to join independent clauses as one sentence. In other words, you're making a compound sentence by joining two things together. Instead of using the word "and," you're using a semicolon. And I talked about this a little bit in the video, one of the videos on commas. And also organizing complex lists, where you have a list that has lists within it. And I'll show you some examples of that here in a second. So let's go back and just look at, first of all, my example on independent clauses. There we go. I enjoy myself every time I go to Disney World. It is my favorite place in America. Okay, the way that this is written right now is an error. It is a sentence error called a comma splice, because we have spliced together two complete sentences using a comma and into one sentence. So you can't do this. This mark won't work. It needs to be a semicolon. As I mentioned before, there's always three ways to fix this. The semicolon is only one. If you wanted to keep the comma, you could add the word "and." If you wanted, instead of the semicolon, just go ahead and make it two sentences, you could do it like that with a period and a capital I. But for now, we're talking about semicolons, so that's the way that you would do it. I'd say one of the biggest problems I've seen is misuse, or rather confusing the use of semicolons and colons. So you might review the information, the video on where I talked about colons carefully. Make sure you understand the difference between those two things. Okay, so that's what that's for. Organizing lists. So let's say obituaries are always good examples because they always have lists of names in them, so it's easy to draw examples from it. He is survived by three sons, Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. Okay, so three sons. We got a one list with three things. Notice there's no comma before "and" right there, because again it's a list of three. Okay, I guess technically if you wanted to, you could use a colon here. We usually don't do that because you're gonna see how messy that would get with the multiple lists within these types of articles. But let's say that it wasn't just three sons. Let's say he had some sons and some daughters and some brothers. This person, whoever this is, who happens to have relatives with weird names. He is survived by three sons, Alvin, Simon, and Theodore, three daughters, Brittany, Jeanette, and Eleanor, and three brothers, Larry, Moe, and Curly. Now notice that we have three lists, and each item within the list happens to have three things in it. So what we need is a punctuation mark that will show some levels of separation. So the semicolon is going to show the separation between the bigger items, okay, the separation between the lists themselves. And the commas will be used to show the separation between the items within the individual list. So to punctuate this correctly, we would look through it and say, he is survived by three sons, Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. And we're going to change this to a semicolon. Three daughters, Brittany, Jeanette, and Eleanor. And we're going to change that to a semicolon. And three brothers, Larry, Moe, and Curly. Now, you may be saying, but what about this? You've got a conjunction there. That's the last conjunction in the series. So shouldn't we omit this semicolon? The AP style book will say no. Okay, it's just the omission is getting too confusing. We need it when you've got lists of lists like this, things can get a little complicated to look at. So that's what you use the semicolons for. This becomes even more important if you need to start using commas for other reasons, like listing the towns that each person is from. So if each of these people, say, had a city of residence, you can see how the layers of commas would get even more confusing. So you kind of see where this is headed. If I have to list a city of residence with each one, this is just going to get very, very long in a hurry. But that's really all that you have. It's almost a shame we don't have a third different punctuation mark that we could use there besides commas and semicolons to help keep those lists organized, but this is really your only option. Back when I used to write obits, I sort of went rogue and decided that we weren't going to use commas to set off the name from the city, because I thought that it was just getting to be too many commas, and it's not what the Associated Press wants you to do. It's not the way that it's listed in the style book, but at the time I thought it made sense and helped keep things a little more clear. But so those are the two basic uses of semicolons, and it's pretty straightforward.